Because of his wide-defined back, his six-pack abs, his triceps, or his biceps. No, it's because of his actions in the hidden inventory arc, which caused the ripple effect that is affecting our favorite characters now. So today we're going to dive into the Shibuya arc, the hidden inventory arc, and later manga events that took place that gave us more of an insight of Toji. At the beginning of the arc, we are introduced to Gojo and Geto, and they're given a mission with the objective of delivering the star plasma vessel. Every 1,000 years, Tegan has to do a merger with the appropriate vessel. This vessel is a girl named Riko, and Riko is under attack of many assassins. So Gojo and Geto had to deliver her safely to Gojo because they were known as the strongest sorcerers at that time. After receiving their mission, they run into Rika and she was being kidnapped by the Q soldiers. Geto and Gojo quickly defeated these soldiers without any problem, and they were able to recapture Rika. Before Rika regains her consciousness, we're flashed to a scene where we see two individuals discussing their terms. The man on the right, named Shiyu, is acting as the mediator for the Star Religious Group. He explains how they don't have the power to kill Rika on their own, but they have plenty of money and they're willing to offer it to anybody that can possibly do this mission for them. Shiyu looks over and calls the man Zenin. The man on the left quickly corrects him and informs Shiyu that he goes with his wife's last name after they had gotten married, and his name is now Fushiguro, no longer Zenin. After correcting Shiyu, he then informs him that he will now accept the offer, and now the mission begins. We now go back to where Geto is sitting there with the defeated Q soldier, and he makes him quit being the curse user. After making him quit being the curse user, the soldier informs him that Gojo is going against one of his strongest soldiers, which is comical because Gojo sends a screenshot or a selfie of him after he defeated the other Q soldier. Like I said, father. We go back to the scene where we now see Toji and Shiyu at the racing horse where Toji seems to be betting. And around this time, Shiyu still just checking in, seeing what's going on with the status of killing them. And Toji at this point hasn't even let Shiyu know his grand plan, so he's just chilling. Through this conversation, Shiyu mentions his Megami, and Toji kind of acts like he forgot who he was. After defeating the Q soldiers, Riko wakes up and introduces herself to the crew, and we also are introduced to Kuori, her caretaker, since she was a little kid. From that point on, Gojo and Geto express their concerns about their mission with Principal Yaga, and also letting Principal Yaga understand that they're really there to make sure Riko gets delivered to Tengen, and also for her to have fun and enjoy herself. In the midst of all of this, we see another group of curse users getting ready to attack our crew. From then we flash back to Toji, and he's sitting there and Shiyu gives him a call, asking him what's the big idea of him putting the 30 million that was offered to him on the black market so curse users can pick up the bounty. What was the point of even getting Toji to come into this picture if he wasn't going to go on the mission himself? This is when Toji unveils his grand plan. He states that Gojo is the first person in 100 years to yield both the 6 eyes technique and the limitless technique. So as long as Gojo's with Rika, nobody will be able to harm her. But by using these curse users that are taking up the bounty, this will wear down Gojo and the people that he's with, aka Geto. The constant fatigue on these two will make it easier for Toji to launch his attack when the time is ready. And then he tosses his phone in the soup and tells Shiyu he's going to join the battlefield very soon because things are picking up quickly. Geto and Gojo quickly defeated these two curse users. Like I said, father. But in the midst of all the chaos, Misato was kidnapped. Misato being kidnapped was an unexpected setback for the crew. Rika stresses that she will not go through with the merger unless Rika is there, which is understandable because that's the one person she's known her whole entire life. Gojo ensures that they'll get Misato back for her, but Rika cannot back down from the merger when the time comes. As promised, Misato was returned back to Rika safely, and Geto, Gojo, Rika, and Misato all went on a vacation so Rika can enjoy herself before she merges for Tengen. They still want her to have fun and enjoy life for whatever little time that she still has on Earth. Geto walks up to Gojo and asks him if he's been using his technique non-stop since yesterday. Geto asks Gojo if he has to return to Jujutsu High School so he can get healed, and Gojo assures him that he's okay. The mission continued, the vacation comes to an end, and finally, the crew made it back to Jujutsu High School. At that very moment, Toji arrives on the scene and stabs Gojo right in his back. Gojo looks at Toji and asks him if he knows him from somewhere, and Toji responds back with, "Don't sweat it, I'm not one to remember dudes' names either." together and their battle is about to start. After the sneak attack, we are greeted with a flashback of Kid Gojo and Toji. As I stated earlier, Gojo was the first child to ever be born in the Gojo family with the limitless technique and the 6 eyes, which caused a big fuss in the Jujutsu Kaisen community. Everybody wanted to see this kid, so Toji went to go visit Gojo as a child. As he approached Gojo from the back, Gojo quickly turned around and noticed his presence. Toji stated that was the first and last time anybody has ever sensed his presence. Toji's sneak attack failed, and Geto quickly attacked him with one of his curses. Gojo confirmed that he was okay, but told Geto that he needs to make sure that Riko gets to Tengen and that she's top priority. Toji emerges from the curse, and Gojo lets him know that the bounty on Rika's head has already been lifted, and Toji informs Gojo that he's the one that lifted the bounty, and their battle begins. During Gojo's attack, he realized 2 things about Toji. 1, he's super fast, and 2, he has 0 curse energy. Gojo came to a realization that since Toji knows everything about his limitless technique, that means Toji's trying to use his 0 curse energy as an advantage, so he will keep his distance and fight in the shadows and then try to attack Gojo when he's not paying attention because he knows how tired Gojo is. Gojo, in the midst of everything that was going on, the last thing he thought in his mind was Toji's speed. Toji's speed was really throwing Gojo off in this battle. At that moment, Gojo unleashed his curse technique, maximum curse energy output blue, and he destroys everything in the area so he can have a clear line of sight of what's going on the battlefield. After destroying the area, Gojo noticed flyheads incoming from the distance. This is a type of cursed spirit. Gojo quickly realized that these spirits were hidden within the cache that was attached to Toji when he first came to fight. The flyheads was just a mere distraction. In the midst of all the chaos, Gojo was overthinking the whole scenario. He thought Toji was using the flyheads as a distraction to keep him in one place and go attack Riko. But in the instance, Toji uses his superhuman speed and gets behind Gojo and catches him off guard. In his hand, he has a special grade curse tool, the inverted spear. This spear's ability stops all curse techniques, and Toji plunges this sword in Gojo's neck and then cuts him down and stabs him repeatedly in his leg. As Gojo is falling, he stabs him one more time in his head. Just a slight disclaimer though, YouTube has really been tripping on the blood, or acid blood, in any manga panels, anime, or any type of show, so we won't see the ending of Gojo versus Toji, only because we're not trying to get demonetized. So yeah, you can search it up on your own though. We're now taken to a scene with Riko, Geto, and Kaori. Kaori gives Riko her final goodbyes. Kaori has been the woman raising Rika since she was a little girl, so she looks at her like a daughter. As Geto was escorting Rika to Master Tengen, they pause for a second, and he gives Rika the option to go through with the merger or to leave with Geto and Gojo and enjoy the rest of her life. Geto and Gojo came to terms with their own plan if Rika refused the merger, that they will protect her and her future no matter what because they are the strongest. All this stemmed from Principal Yaga when he first gave them the mission, and he seemed very unsure because he referred to the merger as an eraser because Tengen will take over her body. As Rika went through the motions and thought about the option, she smiled and said yes, she wants to continue living with all her friends, and at that very moment Toji shoots her in her head and she dies. After killing Riko, Toji looks at Geto and lets him know that he killed Gojo. Geto quickly releases one of his special grade curses, the Rainbow Dragon. Toji then explains how he entered the tomb of the star in the cursed warehouse. He said there would be no guards, and since the sorcerers were all away exercising curses, this was the perfect opportunity for him to slip through. Since Toji does not have any cursed energy, he is an invisible man. In the midst of Toji's explanation, Geto tells him to shut up. The reason Geto told Toji to shut up was because he wanted to know how Toji was able to find an entrance. Before entering, they made sure they left no residue. Toji quickly explains that since he lacks curse energy and plus the heavenly restriction he has on his body, it sharpened all his 5 senses to a higher level than a basic human, so he can smell and sense things that most common people won't. So using his heightened senses, Toji was able to find the entrance. Geto had one final question for Toji, and the question was, what happened to the lady at the entrance. Toji looked at him and said he doesn't know. He didn't care if she lived or not, so she's probably dead. Geto yells out, "Then die," and sends his rainbow dragon curse on the attack. Toji quickly cut through the rainbow dragon, leaving Geto shocked. Geto explains that the rainbow dragon was his hardest curse. He quickly understood what Geto was. He understood that Geto was a curse manipulator. Geto released a second curse, an imaginary, vengeful spirit that has an innate domain that you cannot escape unless you answer its question. The cursed spirit asks Toji, "Am I pretty?" Toji looks at the cursed spirit and tells the cursed spirit that she isn't his type. And then Toji quickly notices the blood coming from his ear as the cursed spirit has scissors all around him. Toji was able to sense all the scissors and was able to cut through the scissors with ease. Even the vengeful spirit was shocked that Toji was able to see and cut through its scissors. While Toji was distracted, Geto came in for another attack. His goal and plan was to conquer the cursed spirit on Toji's shoulders. This cursed spirit acted as a weapon cache for Toji, storing other cursed spirits and weapons for Toji. Geto wanted to conquer this to weaken Toji's offense. Geto has an ability called curse manipulation. Curse manipulation allows the user to conquer cursed spirits. The weaker the spirit, the easier it will be for the individual to conquer the spirit. This was a miscalculation on Geto's part. The cursed spirit, the weapon cache, already had a master and servant relationship with Toji. Geto's attack was then repelled. Toji goes in for the final kill and cuts Geto in his chest. Geto drops to the floor. Toji then explains that since Geto is a curse manipulator, that he won't kill him. He feared that if he was to kill Geto, that the cursed spirits that he has conquered may come out. Toji kicks Geto in his head and says, "Don't forget to thank your parents. But you guys, with all your blessed talents, lost to a monkey like me who can't even use Jujutsu." Toji randomly remembers that he gave Megumi his name. Megumi means blessing. After the brutal defeat of Gojo and Geto and the death of Riko, we are now taken to the Star Religious Group headquarters, House of the Children of the Star. Here we're introduced to Shigeru, the Star Religious Group representative. Toji drops the dead body of Riko on the ground, and Shigeru starts his history lesson on the religious group. The Star Religious Group started in the Nara period as Master Tengen was spreading his Japanese Buddhist and preaching the moral foundation of the Jujutsu Sorceress Society. The issue that came about was that sorcerers do not believe in the afterlife or God. They believe in the now. And this caused most religious groups not to see eye to eye with sorcery. Through that disparity, the Star Vessel Association was created. They were protected because they were non-curse users, so sorcerers had no right to put their hands on them, so they were allowed to work and operate in secret without any intervention. The Star Vessel Association wanted to stay true to their doctrine of monotheism. They believe, and this is just my interpretation, that if the merger happened, their whole association would have fell apart because Tengen, the man they've been worshiping for 1,000 years, will now merge with another vessel, being Riko. He will no longer be the same god. He will be a different god now, which doesn't go but with their beliefs. Monotheism is the belief in one all-powerful god, one creator. The sorcerers believed in the Buddha, which is a trans-polytheistic religion or practice. So you can see why the religious groups and the sorcerers did not see eye to eye. Tengen merging with Riko would have produced a brand new being, which would have went against everything that the association believed in. So Riko had to die at all costs, no matter what. And that was the end. Toji and Shiyu collect their money and they leave the body with the Star representative. As they were leaving, Toji asked Shiyu a quick question on why he didn't kill the maid. Shiyu explained that he didn't kill the maid because he had an idea of what Toji was planning to do. By allowing Geto and Gojo to retrieve the maid, it allowed them to believe they had some type of false sense of security, which would have added to the wear and tear that Toji needed to defeat them. Toji asked Shiyu to take him out to eat, and Shiyu laughed and said he doesn't expect Toji to pay for the food anyways. And he also said that he promised himself that he will only associate himself with Toji in business and in health. Toji completed his mission. He killed Riko, defeated Geto and Gojo, and collected his money. As he was walking, patting himself on the back, he looks up and sees a very familiar face. The face of the man that he thought he killed, Gojo. Gojo quickly says, "Yo, long time no see." Toji standing in shock, he says, "For real?" And Gojo smiles and says, "For real, for real." Gojo explained that when Toji stabbed him in his neck with the inverted spear, he concentrated all his energy and life force into a reverse technique to heal himself. To understand reverse technique, you have to understand curse energy. Curse energy is created from the negativity reinforced in your body. So in order to create reverse technique, you have to multiply negative by negative to get a positive outcome, and that's where the healing factors come from. Gojo said he never understood how to do that on his own, but after Toji tried to kill him, he was able to see the core of cursed energy, and from then, Gojo explains to Toji that he lost the moment he decided to stab him in his head and not cut his neck off. Toji looks and says, "Lost? The battle's just beginning," and part 2 of their fight starts now. Gojo looks up to the sky and says, "You're so right." Toji attempted to use his speed as an advantage and tries to attack Gojo, but Gojo is different from before and was able to react and dodge the attack. Gojo uses his newly found positive energy from the reverse technique and allowed it to flow into his limitless curse technique. This combination allowed him to release a brand new attack called Curse Technique Reversal Red. This shockwave of attack repelled Toji and blasted him through a building. Toji tanks the attack from Gojo, checks his body to make sure no bones were broken. He realized Gojo had 3 abilities: the neutral ability of his curse technique that allows him to neutralize motion, his other technique Blue, which allows him to attract object, and now Red, the power to repel object. War ready, Toji attaches his spear to his chain. He declares Gojo's 3 abilities will not be a problem for him: the limitless technique that stops motion, the curse technique Blue, the ability to attract, would not be an issue as long as he used his extended inverted spear to attack from a distance. And as for the ability Curse Technique Red, as long as he's able to time it correctly, he can use the spear to stop the blast. This uneasiness, Toji begins to feel the pressure from the fight with Gojo as he looks the madman in his eyes. Toji shakes off the feeling and yells out, "Die." Gojo continues to drift in the sky as he thinks about how they failed the mission and Rico, and he drops one of his hardest lines: "Throughout the heaven and earth, I alone am the honored one." Toji launches his spear and his chain forward at Gojo. Gojo dodges another attack. Gojo quickly dodges the attack and realizes his biggest flaw when fighting Toji. Toji knew everything about his technique. Innate techniques are passed throughout the generation. These techniques are easy to learn because there's always a how-to manual. The disadvantage, the secrets of these techniques get out to other members of other clans. Gojo is a part of the Gojo clan, one of the 3 major clans. Toji is from the Zenin clan, another major clan. That's how Toji had so much intel on Gojo and his technique. With that realization, Gojo was about to use a technique that was only known to a few members of the Gojo clan. It is the combination of red and blue, motion and reversal. When motion and reversal collide, imaginary mass comes rushing forward, unleashing the hollow technique. This uneasiness, Toji thought to himself. He usually never works for free, and he usually runs off with the money. But Gojo, being the pinnacle of the Jujutsu Kaisen world, standing in front of him was too good of an opportunity to pass down. He wanted to crush the pinnacle. He wanted to crush the Zenin clan. Toji chased the self-affirmation by defeating Gojo, which caused him to divert from his true self, and at that very moment, he lost the battle. Toji stands there with a hole in his chest. Toji's final words were, "I thought I had set aside such pride, to be proud of neither myself or nor others. I chose that path, didn't I?" Gojo kindly asks if he has any last words. Toji tells Gojo in 2 to 3 years, his son Megami should be sold off to the Zenin clan. And that partially concluded Toji's story in the Hidden Inventory arc. But we're not done. We had to dive into Toji's final words before he died. There's a lot to unpack there. If we go back to the final panels and the final conversation, the inner dialogue Toji had before dying, it seemed like he was questioning himself and the path he chose to live his life, and his relation with the Zenin clan. I want you to remember the last part in the last inner dialogue that we heard from Toji. He said, "To be proud of neither myself nor others, I chose this path, didn't I?" Questioning himself before death. Why? In order for us to figure this out, we're going to have to dive into Toji's backstory. Toji was born a member of the Zenin clan, one of the major 3 clans. Toji was born a member of the Zenin clan. He was born with heavily restriction, but he did not have any curse energy. Heavily restriction is what grants Toji his superhuman abilities. Because he doesn't have curse energy, he's able to tap into the full potential of it. A blessing to some, but for his clan, which is known for having the most elite sorcerers, they looked down upon him. They tortured him. They reminded him every day how he wasn't nothing without curse energy, which played a major role into his mindset. Toji was reminded daily about how he was a failure, how he was nothing, all because of something that was completely out of his control. He didn't choose his parents. He didn't choose to be born, but that's what he went through. And if you don't believe me, we have canon proof about this. Chapter 151, we're greeted with a young New LaHoya running towards something. He has his little inner dialogue talking about how he's a genius and how he's going to be next up for the clan, but he wanted to see the black sheep of the clan. He wanted to see how awful he looked, how pitiful he was. LaHoya was shocked that a man was born without cursed energy. For a child to hear all of this, that means he was hearing this from the adults that were inside the clan as well. When he ran up, he saw the man Toji, and he saw somebody standing so strong and proud that he couldn't believe it. Also, for some more information on how Toji was treated in the clan, Maki was born without cursed energy, and also she had heavenly restriction. Maki is one of my favorite characters in the series, and I can't wait to cover her on this channel. But just look how Maki was treated by the Zenin clan for not having any cursed energy. Look at season 1. Look about how everybody talked down on her, looked down on her, bullied her. Even in the preparation for the Culling Games, you see that LaHoya used to beat Maki up on a daily basis. So just imagine what Toji went through. Toji finally left the clan, and his life spiraled out of control. All the mental trauma that he experienced with the Zenin clan slowly started to eat him alive, forcing him to believe that he wanted to live a life of not being proud or loving or caring for anyone. Kind of grim and kind of depressing, but there's a lot of people that go through the same exact things that end up the same way as Toji. And when I say just like Toji, I'm not talking about becoming an assassin that chases over teens and beats up teenagers. No, I'm talking about the mindset that Toji had. The mindset of repeatedly telling yourself you are not worth anything because people treated you in that manner, made you believe you were worthless. Toji fell down a dark hole after he left the clan, but he found somebody that he could fall in love with. That person was Megami's mother. This was the happiest Toji has ever been in his life. He finally started to see the beauty in life and the upside of everything. And he had his first son, naming his son Megami. Megami means blessing. Megami and his mother was a blessing for Toji in his life. They were everything he needed to take him out of that dark place. But unfortunately, like every good story, or anytime something is going good in your life, something bad is bound to happen. And unfortunately for Toji, Megami's mom died. After her death, Toji fell down that dark hole again. He neglected his son, the same son that he named Blessing, the same son that he promised to love. Toji reverted back to that person that was created by the Zenin clan, which is why he jumped at the opportunity to go against Gojo, to go against Geto. It was to test himself. That's where that self-affirmation part comes into play. But there's more. Back to the final panel before Toji's death. He questioned himself. Did he choose this path? And the answer to that question is no, he didn't. The Zenin clan chose that path for him. He was projecting everything that he went through, all the mental trauma of not having cursed energy and being a part of that clan, forced him and pushed him over the edge to live a life that he never wanted to live. He wanted to be proud of Megami. Why else would he name his son Blessing? But that was just a lie he was telling himself, that he does not want to be proud of anybody. It was a coping mechanism. But we'll revisit this last panel one last time after we go through the events that happened in the Shibuya incident arc. Toji makes a return in this arc. He is summoned by a necromancer. When she summons the souls of the dead, she makes sure she never summons the soul information because that will override her summary and they can take a mind of their own. She wanted to create a Toji puppet, but Toji's body was so strong because of heavenly restriction that Toji was able to take over. This leads us to chapter 108 of the Shibuya incident, where Maki, Nanami, and Nobito are all fighting against the disaster-cursed Dagon and his domain expansion. The fight became very one-sided once they entered Dagon's domain. Dagon was using Death Swarm, his curse technique, where he uses his Shikigami in the domain to constantly attack his opponent. Their fight was interrupted when Megami was able to cast his domain to open a hole in Dagon's domain, which was explained in season 1 of JJK when Gojo obliterated Jogo. Gojo explained that there's two ways to fight against a domain expansion. One is casting a domain expansion of your own or escaping. Megami had a big brain moment. Knowing that his domain is incomplete, he used his domain to open up a hole in Dagon's domain so they can escape. If the trio escape with Megami's help, all four of them will be able to defeat Dagon with ease. Dagon quickly realized that the group was trying to leave his domain, and he made sure they couldn't by unleashing his full power with his attack. At that very moment, Toji enters the chat. Since Toji lacks curse energy, he's able to enter domain expansions and exit domain expansions. Toji disarms Maki and takes her weapon, Playful Cloud, and begins to fight Dagon. Here, they explain. Here we get an in-depth explanation on why Toji did not die after he killed the summoner. The sorcerer used her grandchild as a medium to summon Toji. When she summoned Toji, she used his body information. Toji's body is gifted with heavenly restriction, so he has no curse energy. So, if Toji was brought back to life with curse energy, after he killed her, the puppet would have died with the summoner. Toji not having cursed energy created a loophole with the summoning, allowing him to stay alive after the death of the sorcerer. He became a puppet of carnage, sinking his fangs on anything that he sees and anybody he deems worthy of a fight. Toji makes quick work of Daigon. He flips him, beats him, throws him around. It's actually embarrassing how badly he beat Daigon. He sharpens the playful cloud rod and made a sharpened weapon and stabbed through Daigon, destroying the domain and freeing Megumi, Maki, Nobito, and Nanami. And I almost forgot, when Nobito saw Toji, he had a heart attack on top of a heart attack. After Daigon was killed by Toji, Toji turned around, looked at Megumi, and attacked him. And their fight begun. Father versus son, a reunion in hell. Megumi uses Rapid Escape to create a distraction to put some distance between him and Toji, but Toji charges in. With his speed, he almost killed Megumi. Megumi forces Toji down a narrow path to limit his options of attack. Megumi realized that Toji is just like Maki, but fully realized. Toji launches in for another attack. Megumi uses his rabbit to evade the incoming charge from Toji and attack him with his own curse tool. Toji dodges the attack, but at that very moment, Toji realizes who he's fighting. Right now, we are witnessing Toji's body information. He's just a puppet. He's not really conscious on who he's fighting. Yes, us as the viewers, we know that Megumi is his son, but Toji's in a fighting state that he doesn't know who he's fighting, and you can tell by the colors of his eyes. Here we see Toji and Nobito walking in a flashback. Toji is selling his son to the Zenin clan. They discuss at age 5 or 6, Megumi should be sold off with or without a curse technique, but there will be more money involved if he does have the curse technique. Here, Toji's playing it off. He's trying to seem cool like he doesn't care, but then there's a moment of concern that's on his face. Just look at the sadness in Toji's face in this panel, and the dialogue he's having with himself is even worse. He's saying, take care of Megumi, okay? That place is useless for somebody like me. Once again, remember, since he didn't have cursed energy and he was a part of the Zenin clan, he was literally tortured for it every day, reminded every day how worthless he was. But for Megumi, he sees the potential in him, so the clan will do a lot justice for him. Toji starts to repeat to himself, I don't care anymore. To me, it seems like he was trying to make himself believe that he doesn't care about Megumi. But if you look in the panel, and look at his eyes, you can tell he was sad about what he has to do. But he feels like Megumi would have a better life with that clan instead of him, because he feels like he isn't good enough. At that very moment, the spell of the summoning was broken, and Toji asks Megumi, hey kid, what's your name? He answers and tells him his last name is Fushiguro. Toji looks at him and says, not Zeni, huh? He smiles briefly and says, good for you, and stabs himself in the head. Now we have to revisit the panel before Toji's death. In that panel, Toji asked himself, questioned himself, if this was the path he chose, not to care or be proud of anybody. And the answer is clearly no. Toji believed he was worthless because of the Zenin clan. The Zenin clan made him who he was. They are the reason why he walked down that dark path for so long, until he met Megumi's mom. Toji was actually a proud individual. That's why when the moment came where he would be able to prove himself by defeating Gojo, killing the Star Plasma Vessel, and also crushing the Zenin clan, he took it without thinking. And that's why when you go back, Toji says that he diverted from his true self. The true self that Toji thinks is really him is just the mental abuse that he experienced in the Zenin clan. Toji couldn't overcome that mental nerf that crippled him his whole life. So in his final moments, he finally became his true self. He chose to be proud of Megumi before taking his life. By taking his own life, he saved his son. And that is the end of Toji's story. I know I gave a little sob story about Toji's story at the end, but let's not forget, he did just kill a whole bunch of teenagers. That man is a criminal, let's be for real. No amount of pull-ups that man can do will ever change that he is a criminal. Regardless of Toji being a criminal, he's still one of the most influential characters in the Jujutsu Kaisen series. Toji's actions in the Hidden Inventory arc pushed Gojo's character development, making him the character that we see today. His actions in that arc also pushed Geto down the path of darkness, which led to his death. With his death, Kenjaku was able to get his body and use his ability curse manipulation. Also, by killing Riko, Tegan was not able to do his merger. So now, Tegan is more cursed than he is human. Toji's actions created a ripple effect, which generated chaos in the Jujutsu Kaisen society, all because he wanted to prove himself that he wasn't weak and he wasn't useless. In chapter 145, Tegan states that Toji destroyed their destiny when he intervened in the hidden inventory arc that took place 11 years ago from the current events that are happening in the manga, The Culling Games. For Tegan to give somebody this amount of credit says a lot about Toji as a character. But this was the end of the story. Hope to catch you next time.